Well, hey, I'm Presley Reader. I'm the host of the Phoenix Business Forum. It's awesome to get to interview the guests at the forum, and some of you I know, some of you I don't know, and wanted to talk a little bit about myself, which is not what I do at the forum. The forum, I'm interviewing one of our expert guests who knows a lot more about whatever we're talking about than I do. But I do know a little bit about myself, so I can tell you my story, and hopefully you'll connect with me when you come to the forum or in other ways. I would love to get to know you. And I think that's probably, if I start at kind of who I am, I've done the StrengthsFinder test, and the number one score I get, the top category for me on StrengthsFinder is developer. And what that means is I like to see other people succeed. So being in this role at the forum, sitting on stage and talking to somebody, trying to draw out what they are an expert in, and then interacting with you, our guests, people who come, that's just gold for me. I love to help others succeed, and that's really at the core of who I am. So in that same vein, I love being a dad. I'm a dad to 3 kids. They're 14, 12, and 10, boy, girl, boy, and I love doing that with my wife, Kelly, who I've been married to for over 18 years. And so that's just a great role for me too. I love being a husband and a father. As far as being here in Phoenix and what I do, I've been here about 15 years. I grew up as what I call an American mutt. I lived in Georgia, Florida, Michigan, Ohio, Texas twice, New Mexico, Virginia, and then I came out here to Phoenix, and I've got my parents out here in Phoenix, and we have loved living here now for 15 years and doing a whole bunch of different things here in Phoenix. We love to be outdoors and be active like a lot of you. Also, on the work side of things, I came out here after working in Washington, D.C. as a consultant, which sounds bigger than it is, but it was a great experience right out of school to go be a consultant in Washington, D.C. I learned a lot about what I wanted to do and a lot about what I didn't want to do. And so I left that and we moved out here to Phoenix, and I took a job at a local organization called Food for the Hungry. And that organization worked on international development for the developing world. So a lot of countries that are facing challenges around poverty and natural disasters. I was there when the earthquake hit Haiti, when the tsunami hit Thailand, and got to work on a lot of projects with them and fundraising and international development, which was really exciting. I loved it. The whole time I was there, I had a little bit of this itch to get out of bigger organizations and get into something smaller, particularly something that I could make my own decisions in, like a small business. And so after a number of years at Food for the Hungry, we decided, my wife and I, to start a franchise senior care business. And when I say start it, we bought an area, but there was no business existing in that area, so we really had to start it from scratch and build it up with the help of the franchise. So now I've been doing that for 10 years, and through that have helped hundreds of families navigate the journey of aging. And so that means they've got somebody in their family who is elderly, and they're trying to decide what kind of care they need as they begin to need care, what kind and where do they want to receive it. My company, we specialize in delivering that care to them in their home because they want to stay wherever they call home right now and avoid having to move somewhere. So we send our team in to help them do just that. And our caregivers are phenomenal people who are willing to do some really challenging work. So it's been a privilege to be able to hire lots and lots of them and work with the caregivers. And like I said, be in living rooms with families who are in tough situations, but we get to help them navigate that journey, and that's been a real privilege. So been doing that for 10 years. At the same time, have started a couple of other businesses. The one that I do has to do with something like what I'm doing here with the Phoenix Business Forum, interviewing people. I host a radio show in Oregon, I've hosted a radio show in Denver, hosted a show here in Arizona, and then provided some consulting services to folks who want to start their own show, kind of like starting a podcast, and do this interview style format that we do at the forum. So that's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy it in the same way that I enjoy doing these interviews for the forum. I also tried to start a vending machine business, and that was a real opportunity for learning because it was a complete failure. And I talked to a lot of folks in business, and everybody kind of has that line where they say, well, you only learn from failure. You know, failure is the best teacher, and if you've never fallen off the horse and gotten back on, then you haven't really learned. And you know, I mean, I read that and I'd heard that before, but I had never really experienced failure that almost entirely depended on me, right? I made the wrong choice about the business. I invested the wrong amount of money in the business. I did the wrong kind of market research before starting the business. I made a lot of mistakes in starting that business that led to the failure. So when I got to the end of it, I had to do some real soul searching and figure out why I made those mistakes and how I was going to avoid making those mistakes in the future. Thankfully, they weren't devastating in the sense that I had another business that could put food on the table. I was able to recover some of the debt and pay that off over a couple of years. And I'm really thankful that it wasn't worse than it was, but it was bad. And the difference between having read that and heard that from other people and then going through it was significant, because I really felt it in a big way when I had to talk to my wife about it, talk to my kids about it, tell my peers about it, and then kind of learn how to talk about it honestly and not try to smooth it over. You know, I think in a big organization where I've worked in before, you can kind of navigate through this fog and shift blame here, come up with rationale there, but man, when you try to start a business and it just flops, there's not a lot to do other than just look at yourself in the mirror and decide to tell that story honestly and learn from it. And that was really freeing for me once I got to that place with that failure, was to just tell people, look, they'd say, hey, what about that vending business you were telling me you were going to start 6 months ago, 9 months ago? How's that going? Just with the assumption that it was still going. And I had to say, you know what, I just made a big mistake with that one, and I'm trying to pick up the pieces from that. So within 9 months, I knew it was not going to go, and needed to fish or cut bait, needed to make that decision that we were going to stop the operation quickly and then begin the recovery process, which took about two and a half years as far as paying off all the debt that was incurred. They say that, you know, when people start businesses, what is it, 1 out of 10? I don't know the statistics, right? So I told my wife, well, I failed on 1 out of 3, so the next 7 are guaranteed to be a success, right? Because I've already got my failure out of the way, 1 out of 10. But we're not so sure. I don't know that that's the lesson I needed to learn. There were a lot of other lessons, like seeking wise counsel, which I sought wise counsel during that decision-making process of starting another business, but I didn't listen to the wise counsel. I sought it out so I could check the box that I had done it, but then when I thought back on what people had actually said, I realized I didn't listen to what they were saying. And in some cases, I wish they would have been more clear with me. I would have had to read between the lines, because they didn't just say, "That's a dumb idea, you need to not do that." And I kind of wish they would have, but it was on me. I needed to be the one who was listening for the real question marks there. Taking my time, I rushed things, and that's my tendency, is to just want to rush things forward. That was a big lesson learned, to take my time, wait on the Lord. My faith is really important to me. The most important thing is for me to hear that God wants this step to be taken as best I can, even if it's not an audible voice. And when I look back on that, there's some real question marks about whether or not I truly listened for His voice in the decision. So those are a few of the lessons learned from failure. And I do now go back to what I read about failure and how much you learn from it. And it's true. I mean, you learn a lot more from having failed than from having succeeded. I'm just excited to be doing this business forum because personally, selfishly, I get to do what I enjoy doing, and that is sitting down with really interesting people and learning about who they are and what they're doing with their lives. And the forum's been around for 12 years now, and I wasn't part of it for the first 10 other than going and observing and learning from people. But Mel Schultz had this vision for something that could be a place where people gather and get to know each other, because business, any leadership role, it can be really lonely, so people can come together and share their own personal stories, professional stories, and then learn from somebody who's willing to stand up in front of everybody else and say, "Hey, here's my experience, here's my expertise." So when I got asked to be a part of it, I was just really excited to be in the role I'm in, where I get to sit on the stage and ask the questions, and I get to know each of you. And in our second season, I'm really amazed at the kinds of guests that we're getting, the folks that we're able to connect with and bring to the forum to talk about topics that are really interesting to me, not only as a business owner, but as a husband and a father and a Phoenician, because those are all important parts of my life, and we're covering a lot of that in the forum, and it's an honor to be a part of it, and I'm really glad you're joining us.